Number 1. Long-time lurker here. This is my first post. It's rather long, but hopefully worth the read for you. 2 summers ago, on my way home from an out-of-town day trip for my son's birthday party, we went to a water park and decided to go to dinner in this really small town after getting slightly lost due to Google Maps' crappy directions. After dinner, we noticed across the street was a county fair, so we checked it out for fun. It was getting dark and the fair was nearly over, but we caught a tractor pull that was about to begin. We'd never been to one, so we thought it might be a fun way to top off the birthday trip. We sat on the bleachers and watched for a while. There were a lot of families there watching, and also some drunk people as well. I didn't think anything of it. I had my 16-year-old son with me and a good friend of mine who was a strong guy, so I felt safe. We decided to leave the fair before the event was over, so as not to be on the road at night with the drunks. We walked back to the restaurant, which was now closed, and got into my car and set off for home. Backtracking using Google Map directions, we got on the road that I recognized would get us back home. I noticed that as soon as we pulled out of the restaurant, there was a car behind me. The only other car on the road, as most of the other town inhabitants are most likely at the fair or at home. The car followed us onto the road we took to get home, which I found odd because it was a desolate back hilly road with a wooded area on either side. I thought maybe they too were from out of town and were using the same cut across to get to the interstate, as it was summer and many people road trip. I still felt uneasy about it, but decided to just get off this podunk road and onto the interstate as soon as possible. As we were driving on this hilly back road, it was fully dark outside, and I kept it easy for fear of a deer running out in front of us. The car stayed right behind me. I slowed way down, hoping he would be annoyed enough to pass me for going too slow. Instead, he drove right up on my ass, tailgating me. I could see that it was only one person in the car, and the windows were tinted. I dared to speed up, wanting to get on a main road or interstate as soon as I could. He stayed right behind me, going as fast or as slow as I was, not bothering to get off my bumper. I knew without a doubt we were being harassed now. I was getting scared. I had my son in the back seat. It was his birthday. This was unfair, and I kicked myself for going to the tractor pull. Of course, I couldn't have predicted this craziness. After what seemed like ages, we got into the interstate. I had hoped it was just some local jerk who wanted to scare some city folks, but I somehow knew it wasn't that simple. As I feared, he followed us onto the interstate. Even on the interstate, he tailgated us. I slowed down initially, hoping in futility that he'd pass us. No luck. I sped way up. He caught up and stayed too close. Unfortunately, the interstate was quiet on our side. I had no choice but to keep going. My friend was very angry and ready to fight if necessary, but I wanted no part of meeting this guy face to face, especially with my birthday boy in the back seat. I just kept going and prayed not to get a flat tire. At one point, I got scared enough to lay on the horn while driving, hoping the noise would dissuade him. It worked. He pulled over on the shoulder, and I saw his headlights turn off. I was relieved at first, but we found it odd that he killed the lights. After that, we sped up, and I was flying for home. The sooner, the better. About 15 minutes passed in blissful uneventfulness. We talked about how scary that whole ordeal was, and eventually started feeling relieved to put it all behind us, literally. We were about 25 minutes from home, and there were a couple of vehicles here and there which made us feel less alone on the road. At one point, when the cars thinned out and we were once again alone on the road, something happened that I couldn't believe. Right next to us, and slightly behind us, headlights, bright, burst on. He had been following us the whole time with his lights off, staying carefully behind us and waiting for his chance to scare and surprise us. I almost started crying, but at this point, I was too angry. This guy has been following us for an hour now. Far ahead of us, I saw the taillights of a semi. I sped up quickly, with the stranger in the car next to me trying to pace us from the fast lane. I think he realized that I was trying to catch up with the semi. So for the first time in this insane chase, he did something truly dangerous and swerved at my rear panel, a pit maneuver, trying to push us off the road. I sped ahead and missed him clipping me by inches. I finally reached the semi-driver and got close, hugging the back of his truck as much as I dared and leaving no room for this jerk to cut me off. We went this way for a little while. Finally, and I truly believe this semi-driver knew something was wrong, because after so long of seeing this crazy driver swerving at me and trying to get in front of me as I was not let him over, the semi-driver did something I will forever appreciate him for. He swerved over into the fast lane and dangerously cut off the stranger's car and then tapped his brakes. I took it as my cue to speed ahead from the slow lane and try to lose this creep. I sped up to 85 and 90. My hometown was straight ahead. I took a sharp left turn on a back street that led to a main road and stopped in a busy, well-lit gas station. Luckily, there was a cop there. My friend got out and explained the whole situation to the officer, and he called for other cars to search for this guy. We left the gas station after calling a friend to follow me to the parking lot, where I stowed my car overnight because I did not want the guy to possibly find my house by recognizing the car. I watched my back for quite some time after that. I always notice that make and model of car in white if I see one on the streets. Thank goodness we got away safely. Now, the most bothersome thing about this story is that the small town where this took place happens to be the hometown of one of the biggest mental health asylums in the Midwest. This thought has kept me awake more than one night, and I still check the papers for stories of escapees. So, deranged, creepy driver, possible mental institution escapee? Let's not meet. Number 2. Okay, so to start off with some background information. These are my mother's stories that I am sharing with you. She had a rough childhood growing up, and it wasn't until I was older that she started to talk about a lot of things that happened to her when she was a kid, and also told me things that happened to her when I was still a kid. I'm 18 years old now. I have quite a few stories to share that she has told me, so let me know if you'd like to hear more of them. Growing up, my mother had an alcoholic mother and an abusive father. My grandma is doing much better now than she was when I was in middle school. My real grandpa and I have never met before, and he has been arrested over 28 times and is somewhere off at a mental institution. My mother has not spoken to him in over 5 years. My grandma was married to this man for 11 years, during which time he beat my grandma as well as my mom and her brother. My mother was kidnapped by him when she was born, and kept in hiding from my grandma for over a year. My grandma was too drunk to look for her, but eventually my grandpa returned to the family to try and make things work. Besides dealing with an abusive father, my mother told me about multiple extremely creepy and terrifying encounters she had when she was younger. When she was in middle school, there was an older man who lived on her street. We will call him Paul. Paul's wife had passed away years ago, and he didn't have any kids, so he enjoyed being around them. He had a pool table in his garage that he let all the children use. In order for the pool table to work, you had to insert 25 cents, so he had a bucket of quarters and he would hand to the kids so they could play. All of the parents on that street knew Paul very well and trusted him. He was just like an older father figure to all of the children. One day, my mom had just went swimming and was walking around in her bathing suit with her friend Julie when they saw Paul. Paul invited them to come play pool, so they said yes, because they knew and trusted him. He brought them out lemonade and handed them quarters so they could play. After one game was up, my mom asked if she could come have another quarter to play. Paul then proceeded to grab a quarter and say, "Here, let's play a game. I'm going to stick the quarter down your shirt, then you have to find it so you can play." My mom politely declined, but Paul insisted, grabbed her shirt, and tried to stick the quarter down her bra. My mom screamed and her and Julie ran home and told my grandma what happened. They stopped going to Paul's house, and so did all of the kids that lived on that street. I have some more stories similar to this that my mom has told me. Let me know if I should post them.